Hello and welcome to another FPL video on Fantasy Football Scout. We're doing team selection for Game Week 9. I'm joined by Gianni, who's going to run through his team, how it did in Game Week 8, although we probably won't spend a huge amount of time on that, given how longer it feels now. And then we'll take a look at transfers, captaincy and stuff like that for Game Week 9. The Game Week full of just flags, basically. So how are you feeling at the moment going into next week?
I'm good. I've missed it. I've missed, we would have had 2 weeks without an FPL game, and it's been really tough because I had a green arrow and because my rank's been so poor. I'm just like, I want to play. I want game after game, and that's why I'm so excited now. Because from now till whenever the foreseeable, we've just got loads of game weeks. Like the festive period is going to be so much fun. Can't wait for that. So no, I'm good, all things considering.
Yeah, this is my favourite period. I love double game weeks and stuff, and it's going to be a bit weird this year where they fall. But Christmas is always the best. Starting on Saturday, there is 8 game weeks in the next 6 weeks. So there's plenty of football. And football pretty much on every day now that pay-per-view has been scrapped. But I won't digress too much. Let's just jump straight into the review. So last week you did get a green arrow, 62 points. So it wasn't too bad. What were the moves that you ended up doing? So we spoke about a few of them last week.
Yeah, and I had a couple of options. I think I said my two options were, I can't remember who it was. It was Chilwell and Souček, or Masuaku and Werner. And it would have been Souček in for Trossard, who randomly was dropped. He was actually injured, but we didn't know that going into the game. So I did well. Masuaku and Werner both returned. So look, I'm happy with that. There was no hit. I had a free transfer. Seiss went out for Masuaku. Jimenez, who blanked, went out for Werner. Although Souček and Chilwell, of course, both scored goals and outscored those two. But I'm happy with the calls I made. And I was a bit annoyed about Trossard because no one saw that coming. And we thought it might be a kind of Potter-style Ryan or Mulpai drop like he did the week before, but actually Trossard was injured and is still flagged. So he's one that, despite even without injury, he's one that needs to go.
Yeah, a bit of a tough one. Obviously, you only had 10 players then without Trossard, who's spoken about the bench before. But Captain Kane came through. Salah obviously got his points. Sterling unfortunately blanked again, but obviously you're set going forward and pretty much a full house in defence. So it wasn't that bad a week. Green Arrow, 62 points. Pretty decent. Let's have a look. We'll go straight into Game Week 9 and how that's looking. So, to be fair, you've only got 4 flags. That's the same as me. I've seen some people with like 5 and 6 flags at this point. How worried about them are you right now? And you've already made an early transfer as well, haven't you?
I have. Although, look, I mean, I've got 4 flags, Andy. You're right. But let's not forget, I also own Dunn, Burke, and Mitchell. So, okay, Mitchell's one of the flagged players, but I've got 4 flags and Dunn and Burke. So, effectively, they might as well be red, right? So, look, one of them has to go, and I'm working as a sort of long-term strategy to try and improve my squad. But I'm not willing just to start making moves only to improve my squad and forget about the big hitters I want to bring in. And my team, as I say every time, it's all about the big hitters, and at some point that's going to come good. So, look, one of those big hitters is gone, Kane. And that's my move. I've already made this move this week. Kane out for Bamford. I don't like making early transfers in the international breaks, but my hand was forced in the respect that my plans for my 8-point hit that I think I'm going to be taking, I had the exact funds to do it, and Bamford was one rising. And Kane, I knew no matter what happened in the international break, he was one I was going to want to get rid of. Even if 3 of my players had got COVID, I still wanted to get rid of Kane's because of the funds I need elsewhere, which I'm sure you're going to ask me what my plans are with that.
Yeah, but let's come on to Kane first, right? Because
Yeah.
I still own him. I've talked about getting rid, and I might do it. There is a part of me that's a little bit worried, not because it's Harry Kane, I mean, in previous seasons, you just keep hold of him the whole time. Things are different now, obviously, with Salah doing so well. We all know about him. You don't need me to tell you that. But Kane's numbers this season are so good. I feel like Chelsea and City are the next 2 games, or City then Chelsea. They are 2 difficult games. Then it's Arsenal and Palace, which maybe are a little bit easier, or definitely easier than Chelsea and City. How worried are you about getting rid of Kane? Because his ownership is massive, and he's on penalties, which there's been a lot of this season, and his numbers are so good. They're like probably top 3 in the league so far. Are you worried that you've got rid of him?
No, I'm pretty comfortable with it. Do you know what it is? I see it as a very clear-cut, simple question. I can have Kane or I can have De Bruyne. with those fixtures, it's a no-brainer. Yeah, Kane's form's been good, but let's not forget, Spurs have been limping over the line. Their last 3 games, I'm just looking at their results, they've been pretty poor. Like, yeah, they've had some wins in there, but, it took them till, the 86th minute to beat West Brom. Brighton, they limped over the line, and Burnley, they were outplayed at Turf Moor, and they got the win. So, look, those 3 games, Burnley, Brighton, West Brom, they weren't convincing in any of those 3. So, look, the idea of having double Spurs for me is crazy. Now, it was a brilliant idea when it lasted, and we all did well off those points. But I'm still looking to sell Son, and I was very happy to let Kane go. And yeah, you might be punished. You might get 1 or 2 goals in that run of fixtures, or even 1 or 2 goals in the next week or 2. But over the next 5 games, if I can have Kane or I can have KDB, who's got amazing fixtures, it's a no-brainer. And look, I can't have both. I just can't.
Yeah, no, it is, even for someone like you with so many big hitters, it is difficult to necessarily fit them all in. And yeah, I agree. Like, I have to keep telling myself the fixtures for Man City are so good. They're probably what I want to target, and even they will come good with the amount of good fixtures they've got. So you've already done Kane to Bamford. So before we come on to the -8 you talked about, why Bamford? Obviously, a lot of people obviously he's done really well, right? Don't get me wrong. I know he's done brilliantly so far this season, but a lot of people this week in particular, if they're bringing in a cheapie, are looking at Watkins. So what made you go for Bamford?
He's just scored 2, so of course we want to bring him in. That's knee-jerk. Watkins' goals, I think has he got 6 and Bamford 7, but 5 of those goals came in 2 games against Liverpool and Villa. Let's not forget, Watkins has blanked.
Liverpool and Arsenal.
Sorry, Liverpool and Arsenal. I'm glad you said that. Otherwise, the chat would be going crazy in those comments. So, look, I looked at the numbers. Antonio was one I wanted. I'm not convinced he's going to be ready to play 90, even if he is fit. So then it was down to Shea Adams, Bamford, and Watkins. Now, it then came down to Bamford or Watkins. I looked at numbers. Bamford's more convincing. I like the idea of having Leeds cover despite the fixtures. And part of my 8-point hit involves Jack Grealish. So I just don't want to go to the Aston Villa triple up yet. I have Martinez as well. And I know their fixtures are great, but I'm very happy owning just one attacking Villa player. I know they've been great, but they are still Aston Villa, a team that nearly went down last season. And I know they've had a great investment, but I'm not quite ready for the double up. When I invest in double up on attacking teams, there's only 3 or 4 teams in the league I would really consider. And yeah, I went with Spurs, but you look at City, Liverpool, Chelsea, outside of that sort of circle of sort of big 6 teams, there's not too many I'm often convinced on, certainly for a double up, and Villa aren't one of them. And Jack Grealish is expensive enough, worth it, but Grealish and Watkins is a lot of my budget then, and on attacking players, I'm just not ready for that.
Yeah, fair enough. I know what you mean. I do think, obviously, like you said, there's been a lot of investment for Villa, so it is a slightly different team. McGinn's obviously back from injury. Barkley's coming in. Watkins can actually score, unlike Samatta and Wesley. So there are good reasons, but I think you're right. Like, had Bamford scored the 2 goals this weekend, not Watkins, we'd all be going there anyway. And I don't think Bamford's fixtures get really good from game week 12. I don't think they're that bad until that point either. I think it's Arsenal, Everton. So yeah, it's the amount of chances that Leeds are creating is, it's definitely not a bad buy for the same price. Basically, they're both 6.1. So you talked about an 8-point hit. You mentioned Grealish. How is this happening? Who else is coming in as well?
So it's Trossard out for Grealish and Dunn out for Reece James. So the other transfers, I've got the exact funds to do, which is why I had to go. I wasn't willing to go early on all of them because so much can happen in the international break. But the only one that was rising in price was Bamford. So I went Bamford. I allowed Grealish to rise in price, and that's fine. I could absorb that. But as it stands, Reece James, Dunn, Trossard, and Grealish are all pretty fixed for there shouldn't be any rises until Friday on those or drops. So I can make those moves. And as long as Sterling or Salah play, I get 11 men out. I don't like taking 8-point hits. I don't love taking 4-point hits, but my squad needs it. And I don't want another week with 10 men. If Sterling or Salah are out for what we think could be a long period, and I don't think that's going to be the case, certainly with Sterling, then I would consider selling one of them. But if Salah's only going to miss 1 game, and we don't quite know that, and we will know more on Thursday, then I'm definitely keeping him. I'm not going to use a transfer to get him out, only to want to bring him back in a couple of weeks. He is a guaranteed captaincy option in the next sort of wave of games. I want him in my squad.
Yeah, no, fully agree. Like game week 10, it's Brighton. Game week 12, it's Fulham. Like as soon as you get rid of Salah, unless you go for Mane and then you're comfortable captaining him instead of Salah, which isn't the worst thing, but we've seen how many penalties Salah's already got this season. So when he starts banging him in at the same rate as Mane from open play as well, he's going to be looking great. So yeah, I fully agree. I think one game week is just too tough to get rid of him. Question is though, let's say he is out for one game week. So you're doing your -8. You've got Kilman, Lamptey, or Masuaku on the bench. They can just come in for Salah. Who does your captaincy go to then?
Yeah, it's a really tough one, isn't it? And Salah, the armband was on Salah for Leicester. And I know on paper that's not a brilliant game, but Liverpool did well last season against Leicester and Salah's obviously in form. So look, it leaves my captaincy option probably to Timo Werner. Jack Grealish, of course, becomes an option. You could argue Calvert-Lewin's an option, but I like Werner against Newcastle. I think I'd be backing Chelsea to score goals against Newcastle. The only problem for me is Timo Werner's minutes. Frank Lampard has said he is due a rest. This guy is not a rotation risk. Like he will play.
I was waiting for that.
He will play 9 times out of 10 in terms of Premier League starts. But of course, he's going to get rested. Mo Salah and Sane get rested every December. Klopp does it every season. Going into December, he gives them both a week off in the Premier League. And Werner will get a rest like every other Premier League player out there. And he is playing for Germany 90 minutes. They've got Spain on Wednesday night. Again, that's a big game. The winner there goes through to the finals, the last 4. And I think Werner probably plays 90 there. So I'm slightly worried there, but Pulisic doesn't look like he's ready to start. So I could see Werner on the left, and I wouldn't be surprised with Werner starting down the middle. So I think I'm going to be captaining him.
Yeah, and I think like Chelsea, Chelsea are actually the team for my team worry about not owning. They scored 20 goals this season, which is the highest out of all teams in the league so far. Obviously, Man City, Man United, etc. have had one less game, but I don't think Man United would have got near that anyway, even with an extra game. So yeah, I think Werner, he's not really a differential necessarily, because I think his ownership is still quite high. But if you went and looked at like a bunch of templates from Twitter and places like that, which obviously is just a small sample size, I don't think you'd see Werner feature that much. So probably a differential. I think this week, like Salah, I agree, perfectly fine captain if he's fit against Leicester. Although at this point, I guess you worry about how much he would have trained with Liverpool, because apparently the test is going to be on Thursday, and then if it's negative, he can go back. And it's all a bit up in the air, and Liverpool have I don't think Liverpool have mentioned it at all. So I think he might miss this week. And then, yeah, it's going to be up in the air, I think, for captaincy. I think a lot of people are going to go to Calvert-Lewin or Grealish, and yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Have you got what's putting you off Calvert-Lewin, or do you just think Chelsea going to score more goals? Because obviously Fulham's probably the better fixture, not that Newcastle is a bad fixture by any stretch.
It's a great fixture, Fulham, for Calvert-Lewin. And at the back, they don't look great in the air, and Calvert-Lewin's so strong in the air. But Everton haven't convinced me in recent weeks. The good news for them is Richarlison is back. Again, he'll be someone that's probably going to have quite a long flight home on the Thursday, Friday. But Everton with Richarlison, we know are a different team. But again, after the internationals with some of their key players in South America, long journeys home, I'm not convinced they're just great in terms of form at the moment. We saw United were pretty convincing against them. So Calvert-Lewin's been good for a return or two this season, but he's not the most explosive. He's produced a lot of kind of single sort of, I don't know, between 6 and 10 pointers. Still very good for captaincy, of course. But Werner, you just think on his day he can get a hat-trick. And look, Calvert-Lewin can too, but Werner on pens, it's just Chelsea are better form than Everton.
Yeah, I do think the penalties kind of start swinging things more towards Werner's favour as well, because that's one of the reasons he's probably not in as many teams now. Although I will say there is one of these two players that has got a hat-trick already against the newly promoted side this year, and that is Calvert-Lewin against West Brom. And they're going to be fully fit and I think pretty much they've got every single player they would play in their first level. Apart from maybe Coleman, he might still be out.
I think I read today Alan got injured for Brazil last night or something. Okay. Yeah, I think so. Check that. But yeah, I think they might be missing Alan, but yeah.
All right, well, I can't play too many mind games. Werner's a good option. I just think a lot.
Who are you going for, Andy?
I want to go for Salah. I've got Rashford captain currently, but he's the same. He's got a knock. So if I don't go for him, it gets really tricky then, because we won't go into my team too much, but I then have to rethink my transfers. And then it'll probably go down to Calvert-Lewin or Grealish, I expect.
Rashford's fine, though. That was I don't want to go on international.
I think so, too.
It was the same as Sterling the time before. They all rotate, and England are happy to miss out on one or two big names each call up. Rashford for the Southampton fixture looks great, because Southampton struggle against the those that are quick in behind. We saw Werner and Son ruin them, so I expect Rashford to as well.
Yeah, that's why I'm holding him. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, anything else you want to add before we shut this one off?
Not massively. I mean, Bamford, going back to it, the Bamford-Watkins debate will continue. And I know there'll be loads in the comments saying, what you're doing, Watkins, he's just done better. But actually, the appeal there was penalties for Watkins. But I just think in overall play, the fact I don't have a Leeds player, and I think they will score goals against anyone. I also think the Arsenal fixture is quite good for Leeds, because we know we'll have a go, and as will Leeds. They're not scared of anyone. So yeah, I mean, Grealish coming in is a must. Reece James, I'm willing to take a punt on. I know he is a rotation risk, but if he continues starting 6 of 8 games, I'm happy with that. I would love Chilwell, but I can't afford it. And at 5 million, Reece James, I think will get as many points as Chilwell this season. I really do. I think he's...
That's a big call. If he gets 6 out of 8 starts, I just don't see how that happens. Chilwell's like constantly on the back post.
No, do you know what it is? Chilwell will miss out from injuries. Like Chilwell.
Okay, yeah, but at that point you get rid of him.
Yeah. Oh no. In any given week, I'd rather have Chilwell over James. But over the course of a season, for those to save £1 million, I think their points will be very similar. And I think Reece James will probably end up getting more minutes than Chilwell, because Chilwell just isn't built to be playing 3 times a week at the moment. So yeah, we will see.
Big call. We will see. I think on Bamford, by the way, I think no matter what anyone says, it's a good pick. The only thing that will worry me about Arsenal is they're pretty poor going forward, but they do seem like they just like to defend at the moment, which is so weird to say. But Bamford, I'm pretty sure, is like the top for non-penalty expected goals this year so far, which is absolutely ridiculous. So it's a good pick. So yeah, we'll see how the -8 goes. See if it's another green arrow. If you are enjoying this series, please do give it a like and hit subscribe if you're new around here as well. Gianni, thanks very much as always for joining me.
Thank you, mate. Look forward to chatting next week. I've missed our regular catch-ups.
Yeah, we'll be back same time next week. We'll catch you all again soon. Cheers all.